Hello there. What's happening, YouTube? My name is Immortal Coil, and tonight we're going to be talking about General Kenobi, Ewan McGregor. Before I do that, though, I do want to send a shout out to my new friends in the FANDOM Collective. The FANDOM Collective consists of about half a dozen channels and are basically carrying on the work of the High Council. They're great guys. I was recently a guest on Black Angus Review's channel. Sorry about the audio difficulties. I'm still trying to figure out this whole live streaming thing. And I'm actually, probably after I'm done filming this, going to take myself out shopping for some better audio equipment when it comes to live streaming. So yeah, February 3rd, an article on Dork Side of the Force entitled, "Ewan McGregor is happy Star Wars prequel trilogy has found new love," by Susan, I'm sorry, I'm going to butcher your last name, Logjarge. That's her name, however you say that. Shows that Ewan McGregor had a couple of unique insights into the process that the prequel trilogy was going through. Most of the article, again, is blah blah blah, so there's only like a paragraph of Ewan McGregor's actual quote that I want to touch on, and then if you want to read the rest of it, you can go to that website. Episode 3 was all green screen. They had us on green discs on a green floor with a green background and a guy on the floor rotating us like chickens as we lunged at each other with lightsabers. What keeps you emotionally grounded is the other actor. Episode 2, I was on my own, speaking to thin air. But this scene was harrowing for Obi-Wan. I lose Anakin, and we see the danger of what it might lead to in episodes 4, 5, and 6. For all my moaning about green screen, I did enjoy playing Obi-Wan, and this link to Alec Guinness. George Lucas wanted to do something very different with the prequels. That's why people felt cheated. It was upsetting when people would laugh and joke about it. Now, many years later, the prequels meant a lot to the generation that were kids then. So from smirking, cynical opinions, now I'm getting feedback from the kids that they were made for, and I'm really happy about that. Well said, General. I couldn't agree more. I've always been a prequel defender. Now, they're not perfect, but what they do is they frame where the original trilogy goes and puts a face behind the evil that is Lord Vader. In discussing this article, I also want to get into the astrological concept of a Saturn return. Now, what's a Saturn return? It takes about 30 years for Saturn to get back to the same spot it was when you were born. Okay? And if you believe in astrology, what happens when Saturn returns is that you're basically confronted with the challenges of your life all over again. And you have enough self-awareness that you're able to conceptualize them. So anywhere from the years 27 to 30, suddenly reality is crystallized in a way that your brain can quantify. So it's interesting to see that being mirrored in the words of Ewan McGregor, and indeed in the reality that George Lucas faced when he decided to do the prequels. We also have to remember that George Lucas was more or less a young man when he was doing the original trilogies, and he was making it up, and he was having to find ways to utilize effects to tell a story of that broad of a scale. Okay? You can't just paint with an ordinary paintbrush when you're talking about galaxies far, far away and, you know, cyborgs and lightsabers. But when he made the prequels, he had decades to turn the story around in his head and to try to figure out, okay, what's the best way to take this little tiny paragraph in the first draft of the original Star Wars script and flesh it out and turn it into something that's compelling, something that's going to be satisfying, both as an artist and as the audience. And how do we pull that off with integrity and respect? Again, the prequels weren't perfect movies, but I think taken as a group, and especially as fleshed out by the animated series, the prequels really did a good job of knocking it out of the park as far as explaining the legend of Anakin and how Luke would go places and people would be like, oh, your father was like a fucking badass. And Luke's running around like thinking like Darth Vader killed his dad, which according to Obi-Wan's point of view, he did. And Vader would even admit as much. But as we are later to learn, that's not exactly the case. And Luke had to deal with that for the rest of his life. Also, he had to deal with that the rest of his life. All that misdirected angst of youth, hate for the prequels has blossomed into something that's resembling love. And I have to say this, I think part of that is because of how the sequels have been presented. We're supposed to care about those things, but they're not worth anything. It's basically in the can now, okay? We're not excited about episode 9. We know, like, okay, there's obviously going to be some kind of end to it. I think they're going to do like George Lucas said and then like end up putting a holocron or a disc inside of R2 and sending him, somewhere. Where that's the basis of the movies. But in the absence of entertainment, we only have the past to look back to. And you can see as much evidenced in the Star Wars Kids channel, where they're spending an inordinate amount of time trying to retell the story for children. And they're focusing mainly on the original trilogy and on the prequels. So, yeah, grow your hair long, tie it back like Qui-Gon, grow a beard, or rock the Jedi mullet like General Kenobi did. And pop in the prequel trilogy. You'll have a good time. My name's Immortal Coil. Like, subscribe, ding the bell for notifications. Drop me a comment if you like this video or if you have suggestions for future content. Free Mike Zero. He didn't do nothing. And remember, we're going to find that many of the truths that we cling to greatly depend on our own point of view.